Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's webinar. As you can probably tell, I'm not Angela McNabb, but you see me regularly, so you know who I am. I'm Jackie Smith, the chair of CNI and BEH. Angela couldn't be with us this week. She's having a well-deserved break, and I hope she has a lovely time. She'll be back at the end of next week. So this week's topic is on the very, very important subject of governors, and we've got some governor elections running at the moment, and I have some fabulous guest speakers with me today who I'm going to introduce in a minute. And the purpose of this webinar is to give you the opportunity to ask questions of our governors and ask questions about what governors do. And what governors do is actually critical to the running of a foundation trust, because we have a governing body, and the governing body holds the non-executive directors to account for the performance of the board, and it also links with local communities. So it's a really, really important role. And today's session is about the possibility of becoming a staff governor. So we have governors from various groups, and staff governors obviously are critical. And as you'll know, for people listening into this webinar, there's a lot going on at the moment across both organisations. I say both organisations, by that I mean CNI and BEH. For example, we have a joint mental health review, and that's looking at how both organisations can work more closely together. And we meet each week to talk about where we are and what we're doing. And Eric, who's on this webinar and is our lead governor, sits on that weekly steering group. And it's just one example of the important role that governors play in taking forward the strategic priorities and objectives for the organisation. So being a governor is actually a big deal. And what we want to get across to those listening today is just how important it is to support the trust, its objectives and our business. So this really is a great opportunity to make a difference and get some valuable experience. And our governors are given training opportunities to ensure that they have the skills and the knowledge to perform their roles effectively. And the training, I think, also helps build confidence and knowledge for other areas of your life and developing your future career plans. I'd say it's a really important step for whatever it is you want to go on and do in the public sector. So let me introduce the fab people today. So with me, I have Eric Crossfield, who is our new lead governor. Eric took over on the 13th of May from Wendy Savage. Wendy Savage has been a governor at CNI for a long time, and Eric stepped into her shoes in May. And we've got two staff governors with us. We've got Simon Ramage, who most of you will know. Simon is a really, really dedicated and committed staff governor, takes his role incredibly seriously, and because he does, we get the real benefit of his expertise and wisdom when we come to making some difficult decisions. And Naomi, and it's great to see Naomi on this webinar as well. Naomi last year played a really critical role in helping us appoint some new non-executive directors. That was absolutely fantastic experience. And we did it on Teams. We did it all on Teams. So it just goes to show how flexible our governors can be. So as usual, folk listening into this webinar, please do get your questions in, get your comments in. If you want to talk about other things, which I will not be able to answer, don't worry, we'll make a note of them and we'll pick them up for future webinar sessions. But this really is about the role of the staff governor and what governors do. So Eric, I'm going to start with you if I can, and tell us about your journey to being the lead governor and what it means to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. I'd be delighted to. First of all, I'd just like to say what a huge privilege it is to be on this webinar with you all, CNI staff. So it's really Great, and I do feel honoured to be here with you. So I started out actually as a service user at CNI, in particular what was called the London Veterans Service, on the 4th floor of the West Wing. And someone asked me during that process, being a service user, whether I was interested in becoming a member of the trust. I didn't realise that that's what you could be. So I thought, right, yeah, let's be a member of the trust and find out a little bit more about what's going on. And then just over 2 years ago, I was informed and asked if I might be interested in standing in the governor elections, because now all of you as staff, you're automatically members of the trust, but as a service user, you can't stand for election unless you have previously become a member. So having become a member, I then thought, yeah, I'll stand for elections, and I was lucky enough to be elected as a service user governor. And I found out a bit more about what it was, just as we're doing here today. And I realised that actually I got some previous similar experience of sort of governance matters, because until 2 months ago, just over 2 months ago, I was employed at the John Lewis Partnership at the head office. And there, because it's a co-owned business, there's a very strong democratic system of governance, where you represent, if you're elected, you represent the staff members. It's almost like having lots of staff governors, and you hold the board to account, and that's exactly what we do here. So I thought, well, maybe I can turn that experience into this here. So that was why I was happy to stand as a service user governor and fortunately get elected. And then when, as Jackie mentioned, our previous lead governor, Professor Wendy Savage, stood down at the end of her service, and Wendy has done almost 9 years. That's 3 terms of 3 years, which is the maximum you can do. We were all of the governors were asked if we might be interested in standing as lead governor. I thought, yeah, I'll put my head above the parapet, and I did, and I was privileged and fortunate enough to become lead governor. Still in the early stages of that. It is very, very time consuming, several days a month, but I guess I'm still learning. But there's a huge amount of training that's available. I mean, just last week I was on 2 separate training days with NHS providers, and then the week before I was on another day, and there's some more to come. And those, as Jackie mentioned earlier, those training opportunities really give you, they're free to you. You don't have to pay at all. The trust pays, but they're good to add to your skill set for other areas of your life and your career.
That's great, Eric. Thank you very much. We've already got some questions coming in, but I'll leave those for the moment and just stay with you for a little bit longer, if I may, Eric, and ask you what you would say to someone who was thinking of standing in the election.
Yeah, well, it's extremely interesting. It's very fulfilling, very fulfilling. It's thought-provoking. As a staff member, as a staff governor, you are representing staff. I think it's really important that you think about what you can bring to the role. This is from a giving perspective rather than from a taking perspective. Is what skills do you want to develop? You may not have all the skills initially, but there is training, as I mentioned, and so what can you actually bring to the role? I often ask the question, rather than why do you want to become a governor? I think the question for me is, who are we doing this for? And we're doing it for the people that we represent, the constituency. So for staff governors, it's for you're doing it for staff or other staff. And for service users, for example, we're doing it in the interests of other service users. And we also have public governors as well. So it is an important part of the governance of the trust, as Jackie has mentioned. And we are accountable to our constituency, which matches that point I made about who are you here for. And then we hold to account the non-executive directors, who themselves in turn hold the board to account. And in that way, you have this sort of chain of governance, which allows the decision makers to make more fully informed decisions. I'd also just finally point out that you should never really become a governor because you've got a personal issue that you want to sort out. You have to do it on a much broader basis than that, and you have to declare any personal interests, and anything that you raise should be for the good of the trust as a whole rather than for any individual.
That's really helpful, Eric. Thank you very much for that. So, Simon, I'm going to come to you now, if I may. And you've been a very active staff governor, and you're standing again in this election. What made you want to be a governor, and why do you stay being a governor?
Cardinal sin. I didn't press on mute. Sorry, guys. Hello, everybody. Yeah, and as Eric says, I too am very honoured to be invited and talk to you guys. Yeah, so thanks, Jackie. Well, firstly, obviously, for me, some people have described, and I will say, Jackie, on the executive, some people described that I go back so far that I'm actually almost like came out of the mortar of this buildings that we operate from. So I've been 36 years in the NHS continuously, and 33 of those years have been locally within Camden Islington. And so I will say originally the original chief exec before Angela, Wendy Wallace, did actually come to me and ask me to stand, but that was mainly because it was saying to me, look, you have a lot of experience and we do think that you could put that back into this role and that you'd be good. So at the time I kind of felt rather compelled, but actually I do know exactly why Wendy invited me to stand, and I was elected, and I'm really glad that she did, because it has been really life affirming for me, and and I'd hope that the Council of Governors and the board have also benefited from my membership. So it's been very fulfilling. It's a real chance to influence how the organisations run, you know, in the way services are offered, and we can directly help shape the way that the organisation is developed as it moves forward, particularly with things like the joint mental health review that's happening at the moment. Being a governor has also helped me feel more involved on a pastoral level as well. I was involved originally on the establishment of the CNI choir, which a lot of you will have heard of. I was involved in that one via my role that I used to be on the membership engagement working group, which is one of the working groups that you'd be invited to join should you be elected. It was an idea, by the way, put forward by Wendy Savage. I wouldn't say that it was my idea, but it was an absolutely brilliant idea. And then from there, I actually joined the choir, which I probably wouldn't have done if I wasn't a governor. And it's been absolutely amazing being a part of the choir. And also, I've got to know service users. And also, service users tell other service users that I'm somebody who's very approachable. And some of those people will approach me in the capacity as an advocate. And I have on many occasions actually helped steer service users through care pathways within the trust, and that's very fulfilling when you actually see people who are in need, feeling maybe in crisis, and how understanding the way the organisation works, you can navigate people through the care pathways. I know people because of my experience, and I find that very fulfilling. You asked me also a question why I wanted to remain a governor for a second. Well, I wanted to remain for a second term, but now I'm standing for a third and final term because, as Eric says, you can only stand for 3 terms. I want to do it because I've witnessed how governors can really make a difference. As a governor, whilst you shouldn't take up personal issues, but you certainly can take up issues raised by the members of your own constituency. And they may be about the way that the trust is operating, and then you can seek assurance that actions are being taken to address those issues. So, for example, one governor had an interest in ensuring that homeless service users weren't discharged into the street, and that was raised by the governors, and then the issue was taken up as a business case of the executive, and it ultimately led to the Red to Green initiative, which some of you on this webinar will know about, and then the eventual establishment of the MAID events, which I, in my capacity, was able to invite a senior officer of the trust to present to one of the groups I chair, on how those made events actually ensure service users are not discharged to the street, and showing evidence that that's happening. So therefore we're seeking assurance. So that's how we seek assurance. We do it through the NEDs, obviously, not we don't challenge directly the executive. And personally, I'd been approached by some staff, which is my constituency, and saying that they were seeking assurance about what actions were being taken to address violence and aggression against staff. And that led to us inviting the QI team to do a presentation to the Council of Governors, where they demonstrated how new ways of working were having a positive impact on that particular issue. So my final word in answer to your question, Jackie, is we as a governor can make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's been beautifully illustrated, Simon, by your really helpful articulation of how you've directly impacted some issues. So what would be your main message to someone thinking of standing?
Right, well, I absolutely, it's a really important role, as Eric said as well. And I think anybody who wants to stand, they should really commit and do it properly. They must get involved, join committees, join working groups, because that's where the work is really done. So it's not just a matter of turning up for them, because there's a minimum requirement that you should turn up for so many of the Council of Governor meetings, but you should really engage yourself in working groups. If you're interested in getting to know how committee structures work, then join one of the two committees, the steering committee or the nominations and remunerations committee. I've been a member of the nominations committee for 6 years nearly. I'm now just recently been elected as a co-chair, which is a new approach, co-chair of the nominations committee. I'm also chair of the finance and business planning working group, and I'm also a member of the trust charity working group. So I go to pre-meets on council governor meetings and stakeholder events. I also attend governor open meetings. You've really got to be engaged. I think if you want to get that fulfillment of the role, then do get engaged. And as Eric said, it can be time consuming. I added up through my calendar how many meetings I'd attended in the last 3 years alone, and it's 100. Just shy. I think it's about 99 meetings in the last 3 years, and that doesn't include the pastoral stuff I talked about. It doesn't include attending choir. It doesn't include time preparing for meetings. So quite a lot of the meetings will take place out of hours, but some will take place in hours. And I don't think Eric mentioned it, but obviously as a member of staff, if you are attending governor meetings in hours, you do have protected time to attend those meetings. Bear with me, I'll just turn my page over, make sure I'm not missing anything. So my final comment would be, if you're prepared to put in the hours and put in the time and effort, it's an extremely rewarding and role to do, and it enables you to have a very special relationship with the trust. You feel like you're more involved and that you're an integral part of the organisation. So thank you very much, Jackie.
That's great, very powerful. Thank you, Simon. And again, I think what you've illustrated is that the NHS always likes to extract the maximum amount of opportunity and time from folk. And it's always much more than they tell you it's going to be. But with that commitment and dedication, it can be very rewarding. Naomi, let me come to you. So you're a staff governor and you've been one for almost 2 years, so you don't have to stand for election this time round. But what's your experience been so far?
I think similarly to Eric and Simon, I think first and foremost, it's been a really good opportunity to be able to be sort of like a speaker box for the staff. I'm co-chair of the Network for Change, and I think actually being a staff governor also just gives me a bit of a wider insight and reach into the board. I also just sort of mentioned, I think the opportunities for sort of like good quality training are excellent. So there's that knowledge of how a foundation trust is run is really useful. I think even just navigating your own role, but then also just sort of like core skills about how to effectively chair a meeting is really great as well. And also being able to have that relationship with the board, working with other colleagues and being able to sort of learn things from them. I think for me as well, it's also supported me within the role to get a sort of a wider understanding of what's happening across the trust. I've been quite lucky being sort of in like business development and strategy, so we have quite a good oversight, but actually once you become a governor and you go to the Council of Governors meetings and attending sort of public board, actually you have such a much more wider overview, and particularly sort of an insight into that service user experience as well. And I think that's really valuable, and you can then sort of influence and shape some of that decision making, which I think is sort of a really great opportunity. I'd say also just having that interaction with the other governors. I think that's something that I've actually enjoyed the most about being a staff governor, because you know, I think we're talking a lot about diversity, but when I was speaking with Deborah in preparation for this, I don't necessarily feel like the fact that I'm a woman or I'm black is my most diverse factor. It's probably my age, and I think typically, I think in the past you would be that perception of it's maybe somebody older that has maybe a little bit more time and experience, and there's some really excellent governors on there that have had like massive like careers that have spanned, and they're activists and quite radical, and I love sort of like the passion and knowledge that they bring to it. And I think for me it's nice being able to be sort of a different voice. And I've also it's been great that actually they've also been interested in what I've had to say and what my opinion is, and I think we've really been able to sort of grow together. And I think it's for me it's just a really sort of a good environment to be in. And then as well, sort of as Eric and Simon have mentioned as well, the opportunity to get involved in some of the working groups, so to have a bit more of that focused time. And recently I've just been appointed as chair of the People and Culture Working Group, which I'm really excited to have that opportunity as well, because it really cross-cuts into some of the work I'm doing. So then you're having that perspective from a delivery perspective being in CNI, but actually now then you can work with some of the other governors and public that have that greater insight from Camden and Islington to think actually then how are we supporting the NEDs to hold the board to account. So it's almost like the things that you're passionate about and you're working towards at work, you're able to attack it from all different prongs, and you get sort of a better understanding of the problem as well, so it makes it sort of more effective when you're trying to do something.
That's great, Naomi, thank you. And just tell us what your standout moment has been so far.
So I think you sort of mentioned Jackie, but it was actually being co-opted onto the Nominations and Remuneration Committee. So the appointment of, there was 4, so 2 non-executive directors, one of which was the senior independent director, we had Anu Singh, and then the 2 new roles of the NED associate. And actually I was really, Jackie, I can remember he called me one day, she's like, I need to speak to you. Naomi, I was like, oh God, what have I done wrong? And then sort of asked if I'd be interested in chairing the recruitment panel. And for me, that's actually probably one of my sort of proudest moments in CNI in general. I think being able to sort of rise to that challenge, even just on not a basic level, but having that understanding of like the recruitment process, being able to even looking at sort of the CVs of some really accomplished people is actually sort of great for your own career development, and being able to look at how you interview, or actually people that have had careers that you will aspire to do and see the journey that they've been able to take is actually quite invaluable. And I think it was sort of a fantastic opportunity to be able to look at that. But then also I am very passionate about the trust and sort of our core values, and I think being able to sort of influence and shape and really sort of test and challenge some of the people that wanted to work with the trust was a great opportunity. And I think, I suppose what I was also really proud of was the other people on the panel and the commitment to equality and diversity, but also I think just the commitment to be able to have an open culture where we can sort of challenge each other and have a discussion. I think all opinions were sort of very welcomed. Not everyone always agrees, but I think that's a good thing. We're not all here to say yes all of the time, but there was a real sort of solid commitment. Actually, we want to get the best fit and the best person for CNI. We didn't necessarily just go for the people that had the fanciest CVs or the biggest breadth of experience, or that generic sort of standout, actually who would really work and embody the values of our trust. And I think there's within the governors there's a real commitment and to doing that. And yeah, for me I felt that was a really great experience.
Thanks, Naomi. It sounds most unlike me just to pick the phone up and say, oh, wait, I want you to do something. But I have to say, you were brilliant, absolutely outstanding. And it was the first time you'd done something like that, and you were top class. And we got some really good NEDs and associate NEDs out of it, no doubt about that. So it was tough, it was hard work at times. We had some moments, didn't we, with the old technology, but we got through it, and I'm really grateful to you for doing that. So Eric, having heard the inspirational thoughts from Simon and Naomi, I'm sure several members of staff will want to be a staff governor. So what do they have to do?
Yeah, certainly, Jackie. Absolutely inspirational thoughts, because they're inspirational people, Simon and Naomi, and I love working with them. They're fantastic. Yes, this is right. What do you have to do? First of all, before I mention that, I'm going to say that we are electing 14 governors in all, but those are across different types of constituencies, and that includes two staff governors. And I would also say, put yourself forward. Don't worry if you don't get elected. It is an extremely good experience, I have personally found, to put yourself forward, think about your own reasons, and having a sense of your own personal mandate as to why you might want to do that. It is a good experience, even not to be elected. Oddly, I'm sure you'll agree with that, Jackie. It's a learning experience in its own right, but it takes you several steps forward. So what do you have to do? So we've got a 2-week window now, between now and 2 weeks' time, on the 15th of July. There is a nomination form, and I could say where that is, but I think it's going to be posted into the chat box now. Is that correct? But it's basically hub.uk I'll start that again, hub.ukevote.uk/Candy, C-A-N-D-I. And you can also find all the details and dates on the CNI website, and of course on the intranet as well. Now, the deadline for nominations is 5 p.m. on Thursday, 15th of July, in 2 weeks' time, and then voting opens from Friday the 30th of July. Voting would close on Thursday the 2nd of September, so we should have all of the results the following day on the 3rd of September.
That's great, Eric. Thank you very much indeed. So we're going to take some questions. We've got some questions that have come in on the Q&A, and can I thank again Simon, Naomi and Eric for sharing what they've done and the difference that they've made, because it really is powerful. Simon, I'm going to come to you with this question, if I may. This person has said, occasionally the Trust runs consultations to get views of users. Do governors ever seek the views of members directly via focus groups?
Hi. We haven't run focus groups yet, but it's something that I'm very keen to do. And I have spoken with Naomi before about this. It's something that we'd like to do, is to hold maybe some form of like surgery where people can bring issues to us that they may derive from certain surveys that have taken place. We are, as I say, your representatives on the Council of Governors, and where appropriate, we can bring your issues to the attention of Eric as lead governor and Jackie as the chair, and we can bring through issues in that way. So yeah, that's what I would advocate.
Thank you very much for that, Simon. And I'm going to pose this to both Simon and Naomi. This person has said, who do I talk to about becoming a governor if I'm interested in the role? Presumably you'd both be happy to talk to folk who are interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just approach me or Naomi, and we'll be very happy to chat to people. Just so as you know, one of the existing staff governors, Stephen Ginn, who's not here at the moment, he approached me before he applied to be a governor, and I gave him all the background as to what a fulfilling role it was, and as a result of what I said to him, he stood and was elected. So yeah. Great,
thank you very much. Eric, I know you've said this already in answer to this particular question, but it might be worth saying it again. How long do governors serve for?
Yeah, so for each election round is 3 years long. So let's say we have the results on the 3rd of September. those who have been elected would then be a governor in this case the staff governor constituency for up to 3 years, for 3 years. Typically what happens is that around about every 18 months, the previous 18 months will come to the end of their 3 years. So we have a sort of continuous rolling set of elections in each constituency, and that helps us to have a degree of continuity. So it's basically for 3 years, and then one can stand again for another 3 years, and another 3 years. The maximum is 9 years, 3 by 3.
Great, thank you very much, Eric. And Naomi, I'm going to come to you with this question, and it's been asked a few times, and all of you have touched upon this, and it's about how much time commitment does being a governor realistically require? And the answer to that is it depends. So the fact of the matter is that if we are in the process of recruiting NEDs, there's going to be much more time required. And there are obviously the statutory meetings that Simon has referred to. But let's give it a bit of an average, if we can, Naomi, about time commitment.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a difficult one to quantify, but potentially maybe say like a couple of days a month, maybe on average. But I think it really depends on the amount of activity that's happening at the time. And as Simon said as well, about how much you want to put into it. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Jackie, there's those statutory meetings of the Council of Governors, and then you're encouraged to sort of participate in maybe 1 or 2 of the working groups, and then attend some of the Govern Well training earlier on in your journey as well of being a governor. But then there's the scope to get involved in more. I'd probably say, especially if we're talking about being a staff governor and then sort of like my role as co-chair of the Network for Change, I think there is a real commitment of the trust, you know, to be able to support staff to do some of these additional things. And actually you're not just doing something on the side, it's supporting the trust itself. And so what I would encourage is, if you are a bit unsure about how much capacity you have or the commitment, and even if you're elected in role, just to have a sort of a conversation with your line manager, sort of like one of us, or just sort of other colleagues as well. And I'm sure people will be quite amenable to sort of working out that having that protected time within your week as well to be able to do it, because it is important trust business.
Great, thank you, Naomi. Simon, let me come to you with this question. This person's asked, does the trust cover out-of-pocket expenses? I'm thinking about staff members like single parents that maybe can't stand for the role if they need to pay for extra childcare.
Yeah, this has been raised on a number of occasions. There is actually the ability to make claims where appropriate, and we have had staff governors in the past who've raised those questions, and they have been answered. So there is standard expenses that can be covered in covering this role. Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. And then this person's put, do I need prior experience? The answer to this is, I'm going to come to you in a minute, Eric. You need commitment, desire, dedication, and ability, as Simon's illustrated, to really be passionate about giving back to the public service, public sector. But Eric, let me ask you to flesh this one out a bit more.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. You need not so much experience, a little bit sufficient life experience, because this is not about, it's not perfectly formatted way of doing it. There are different ways of doing this, and each governor contributes differently, and that's a good thing. That's why we have a council of governors rather than a set format. So you gain experience really quickly. I'd certainly say within the first few months. I don't know if Naomi would agree with that as well. But also, you have a lot of support. We have this training from NHS providers, Govern Well. I will personally give support to any new governors. We're looking to have a governor development programme, which we're hoping to set up as part of it's sort of in line with an induction programme. So what you need is interest, and also to be open to challenge yourself and open to challenge others as well, constructively. You're never a voice piece for individual members of your constituency. You are, the experience you will have is sufficient that you can kind of sum up a broad perspective that is going on, so that you can give your own interpretation of what your constituents might be concerned about.
That's very powerful. Thank you, Eric. Simon, do you know the answer to this? This person said, am I able to apply for a service user role if I'm a member of staff at CNI?
Not quite sure I understand that question. Sorry, Jack. Am I allowed to apply for a service user role? Oh, I see. Could you become a service user governor if you're a member of staff? Well, if you're a service user, you can be a service user governor. And if you're a staff member, you're a staff member. If you're both, then you can choose. So yes, the answer would be.
Okay, thank you very much. And then this is a question to all of you, really. This person says, how does the election process work? Will there be hustings with the candidates, or is it based on personal statements? Who wants to go first, Simon?
All right, I'll go first. So obviously, initially, the fact is that you will be submitting your own personal statement if you actually put yourself forward for the election. And then it's up to you guys as to, well, within reason. I think hustings sounds a little bit extreme, but it's up to you guys as to how you want to promote your candidacy. I'm standing again. I will be chatting to my constituents about my candidacy, and I would seek their support in the same way as I would assume anybody would, because it's a vote at the end of the day. And if I don't do anything, this is a democratic process, and you know, any one of you guys who wants to stand, you can oust me out of my office, just as we've been seeing with all these by-elections recently. So come on, challenge me. Yes.
Steady on now, Simon, steady on. We want you to be successful. Naomi, when you decided to stand, how did you go about the hustings bit?
Yeah, so I think mine was similar. So you have like a personal statement. So I put that out with my application, and then I think it was more just a case of just talking to sort of my colleagues and letting people know that actually I was sort of standing, and just having those conversations. So yeah, probably about a little bit of networking, just letting people know. But I think there'd be no harm if I think it's actually even a good idea, maybe just to get a little bit of momentum up. But if people wanted to have a platform, actually it'd probably be a good webinar, wouldn't it, to have the candidates here giving their manifesto. Yeah, I think it's all good fun. Yeah.
That sounds interesting. It's a good job Angela McNabb's not on this webinar. And let me ask you this, if I can. I'm not quite sure what this person means, but they're saying, are there any restrictions on becoming a staff governor? Simon?
Yeah, well, actually, I think the Constitution and the description of the role, I think it says what would exclude somebody. I mean, you know, it's just standard stuff in terms of anybody who's going to be a member of the board or anything in terms of govern well, that you have to satisfy those criteria. There's certain exclusions, but they're the same exclusions as you'd have being employed. So I can't imagine anybody not meeting the criteria to be a staff governor, to be frank.
Yeah, and I think, as we've all said in this discussion, the essential requirements is to be committed and dedicated and passionate about the trust and its priorities. But Eric, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so in answer to this, in partial answer, I got some information from NHS providers recently, And one of the things they said, I'm just going to read it out, the staff governor should not seek to act as a staff representative or union representative on employment issues, as there are other channels for dealing with such concerns. So, you know, this is a notion of where, you know, are there any conflicts of interest? Another point, for example, this isn't so much a restriction, this is a recognition of our of who we are. We are non-political. The trust itself is non-political, and we likewise must be non-political. So we mustn't bring political issues to bear or to fore, and that would be something which would need to be declared by way of interests.
Yes, thank you, Eric, for reminding me of that. It's absolutely critical that we remain neutral on all those areas and we don't bring in political views. Naomi, I thought I'd read it out. Someone's put on the chat function, Naomi is fab. There you go. So I thought I'd read that out. As you're not standing for re-election yet, we can happily share that with you, Naomi.
Thank you.
Just to sort of wrap things up, if I may, one of the most important things that I think all governors can do is attend board meetings. I know that means finding time in your busy diaries, but it's the fundamental part of what a trust does. It's where you see the interaction between the executives and the non-executives, and you see the non-executives seeking to get assurance in the various strategic areas of priority. And okay, let's be honest about it, not all board meetings are dead exciting, but we often hear from service users, we often hear about staff experiences. We had a very passionate presentation from Sandra for the Network for Change on the roadmap. So public board meeting is a great opportunity for governors to see the work that the board does, and particularly the NEDs, because your role is to hold the NEDs to account for the performance of the board. So I would very much urge you to bear that in mind if you're going to put yourself forward as a staff governor. So that's the end of this session. Can I thank Eric, Simon, Naomi, for giving up your time today and promoting the importance of the role of the governor, because let's face it, we wouldn't exist as a foundation trust without you. You do an incredibly important job. It's so valuable to what we do in terms of thinking about the future, and without you we wouldn't exist. So for anyone out there thinking I'm not sure, Simon and Naomi have said you can contact them and have a bit more of a discussion, and Eric's given a personal commitment to support new governors, which I think is great. So thanks everyone who's listened into the webinar for your questions and your comments, but my special thanks go to Eric, Naomi and Simon for your commitment, dedication and support to the Trust. So have a good weekend, everyone. I think England might win the football on Saturday. I don't know, it's just a guess. And enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Jackie. Bye, everyone.
Stay, Derek. Stay, Eric.
Right, cheers.